Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 Procore Championship Data Dive Show. Per usual on a Monday night, we're going to take a deep statistical look at Silverado Resort, figure out the style of players and the metrics and the analytics behind who generally plays well around Napa and Silverado. We'll take a look at who is in the field, who does best on those specific metrics, if I could talk. And then at the end, we'll cover some of the research that I ended up not posting. There wasn't a whole lot, but whatever little I did uncover, I will make sure to share at the end of the show. So make sure you stay tuned for that towards the end. We have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where, as I just alluded to, normally I place research out there every Monday afternoon. Some course information, prior patterns of previous winners, players in the field this week or that week who also fit those patterns, didn't do anything for the Procore. As I will get to at the end of the show, not a whole lot in common between past winners. But normally, if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play that comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. So make sure you're following me over on X if you want to see those pieces of information. And then lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. Even though he is not doing much for the fall, he did confirm to me earlier today that he will still send out his deluxe version every Wednesday tournament week that has his top plays, top values, projected ownerships, and all that. So you're really missing out if you aren't subscribed to his article. Make sure you're doing that and go show him some support, follow him over on social media. Lastly, for this intro, we're live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. You know, anything to do with the Ryder Cup, any success that you've had in whatever wagering endeavors that you've partaken in. Maybe week one NFL went very well for you. Maybe you've hit some college football, baseball, anything to that effect. Make sure you jump into chat. Let me know of your success. And then moving forward to the Procore, did you look at any of the odds today? Did you make any wagers? Do you think Scotty's the overwhelming favorite? How do you think the 10 American Ryder Cup players are going to play this week? So feel free to put your thoughts and opinions in the chat. And if you're not able to catch the show live, put your thoughts and opinions into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. But we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. Let's dig into the weeds of the data for the 2025 Procore. And we're going to start, as we always do, on a Monday night over at the extended forecast look for Napa and Silverado. Not a whole lot here, as you would expect in California, kind of northeast of San Francisco. Beautiful weather, highs in the mid to upper 70s. Very, very little wind in play, at least early on this week in terms of the forecast. Just checking some background here, making sure everything is all good to go. So nothing to do with any weather as of right now. And of course, anything early on this week, we wouldn't be able to tell any potential wave advantage. As it stands, it doesn't look like there would be one anyway. So we'll update this Wednesday. The first thing Wednesday night, see if the forecast changes, but looks just like a perfect week weather-wise for golf. So we'll close that out, and we'll move to Fantasy National. There have been a few field changes. I covered majority of those last night in the initial research. There was one more field change today, and that being Davis Riley has withdrawn. So Davis Riley is no longer in the field. He has been replaced with or by Troy Merritt. So Davis Riley out, Troy Merritt in. They've also loaded the 4 or 5 open qualifiers. But let's take a quick view of how some of these players performed in these overarching metrics, if you will. One of the first things that we're going to cover is short courses. Silverado is less than 7,200 yards as a par 72. So this is an extremely short course, especially by par. So your top performers in the field this week on short courses, and again, per Fantasy National, those are listed as less than 7,200 yards. Your top performers on short courses: Tom Kim, Akshay Bhatia, Isaiah Salinda. It's only 7 rounds, so very, very small sample size there, but he's played well in those 7 rounds. Justin Thomas, Scotty, Ben Griffin, Russell Henley, Patrick Cantlay, Keith Mitchell, and Mark Hubbard are your top 10 in terms of short course performance going back to the beginning of last year. We talked quite a bit about this last night, but despite this being a fall event, this is not generally the easiest course around. Plays to about average. Now, I do think with the very calm winds that are in the forecast and the level of competition that is here this week, this is one of the strongest, if not the strongest field I can remember for the Procore. With that, I do imagine some scores will be better this year. I would not be surprised to see more rounds of easy. But in general, and you'll see like last year, every single round was average relative to par. 2023, all but one round average relative to par. So this isn't a birdie fest. Most winning scores are in the upper teens. Maybe you get into the low 20s. But you don't have these gaudy numbers like you had at the BMW, like you had or like you have at TBC Craig Ranch or anything to that effect. You know, you get scores right around minus 20. In fact, if we just take a look at like Bhatia, who was at the BMW, what was that winning score? Scheffler was 15, so Caves Valley played much more difficult this year. Was it 2024? That was 12. 2023. Cantley won sometime when it was very, very easy, and now it's escaping me. There we go, 27. And of course, 2025 that changed from a par 72 to a par 70, so that suppressed scoring a little bit. But anyway, I digress. This isn't easy. This isn't going to be a runaway score of like 30 under that we see at some places. Generally, only one person gets to 20 under. In fact, 18 under is generally in pretty darn good contention to win here at Silverado. Long story short, I don't feel comfortable using this scoring average relative to par filter. We might sneak in some easy as we move forward this week, but in general, it plays about average. So we've looked at short courses. We don't have anything to do with architect filter. This is a Ben Harmon original design. It has been renovated by Johnny Miller and RTJ. So no architect filter. If you were interested, I don't like using this filter either, but we could take a look at calm winds. So in 2025, your top performers when winds have been calm have been Scotty, Colin Morikawa, Justin Thomas, Akshay Bhatia, Patrick Cantlay, Alex Smalley, Ben Griffin, Keith Mitchell, Russell Henley, and Cameron Champ. Skipping Kevin Yu, he withdrew yesterday. But I think that's pretty much it in terms of a big picture, overarching view in terms of some of these metrics, particularly total performance. So instead, why don't we go ahead and go to Microsoft Excel and really dig into some of the data regarding Silverado and the Procore Championship. We take a look at our strokes gained here. It was a little shocking to see, but the data certainly backed it up, that around the green was a big facet for the top tens, top fives, particularly our winners. And it's really backed up here. You have one fairly low outlier here, but otherwise it's been a pretty darn consistent performing metric at Silverado. Approach, not a whole lot, to be honest with you. It's been consistent, but hasn't been too terribly important. Off the tee has a couple of years where it was a pretty good factor, 3 years where it really wasn't. Really, the name of the game here at Silverado is putting. And they've had one kind of low outlier year. If you remove that, it becomes, significantly the most important shot type here at Silverado. And we saw that last night in Fantasy National going through those graphs. If we take a look at Silverado versus, the average full field course, off the tee, slightly under. I'm a little surprised, honestly, that it is just this close to average. The approach is not an important factor at all. Around the green is a big factor, and putting is a big factor. So this is a short game course, surprisingly. Despite the fact that the greens are easy to hit here, players shouldn't be missing greens all that much. This is really a little bit shocking to me, but 5 years of data certainly back it up. Not sure how much we're going to focus on off the tee, because a lot of people just kind of hit driver, which is surprising to see that the distance would be so low. But everyone's hitting driver, and the majority of PGA professionals will hit it roughly the same length. You have your exceptions like Cameron Champ at one extreme. You have your other extreme like Brian Harmon or what's another name like Brian Campbell. You certainly have your extremes, but for the most part, your average professional is going to drive it about the same length with your drivers. So there isn't a whole lot to be gained here in terms of distance, and not really a whole lot with fairways either. It's not promoting ball striking here at Silverado. It just really doesn't. Good drives, maybe slightly a little higher than the average full field course, but not by much. And fairways really aren't that big of a deal because players are just hitting driver nonstop around here. They're not afraid to be in the rough. The rough isn't long. It's not Bermuda, so it's not tricky to play out of. I just don't foresee a whole lot of ball striking factoring in the mixed condition model. Yes, we'll have some approach. We don't want to completely ignore it. So we'll have some, especially since it's pretty consistent. But it's going to be quite mitigated as opposed to what I normally do. And then, moving to ball striking, particularly off the tee, nothing stands out here. Greens, not a whole lot either. We move to scoring, and even though they're both negative in terms of against the full field course average, you see that birdies, the potential to get birdies outweighs the ability to avoid bogeys by a significant amount. I also mentioned last night, even though this is a very short par 72, there aren't a whole lot of eagles around Silverado. You're really just kind of looking at birdies. So we'll probably look at like birdies are better gained on short courses because there are a few eagles to be had, just not very many. Just not very many. So we'll definitely be looking at some short course metrics with some scoring there. Then we get into kind of the raw data, where the strokes gained come in these par 3s, 4s, and 5s. So in these par 3s, even though they are 16% less important than the average full field course, we look at the specifics regarding the Procore and Silverado. You see the majority of the par 3s fall in the 175 to 200. Yeah, okay. Some one of the holes does get shortened up a little bit seemingly every year, but majority in this 175 to 200, I'd probably stick with just, maybe 5% in each of these ranges would be my guess. But not a whole lot in par threes. Not a whole lot in par threes. The par fives are quite important, as we'll see. Moving to par fours, almost all of your strokes gained come from 400 to 450, which is no surprise. 7 of your 10, 6 of your 10, somewhere around there. 6 of your 10, 7 of your 11 par fours fall between 400 and 450. So majority of your par fours fall to this range. It's been very, very consistent. So we're going to put quite a bit of emphasis on who has played these lengths of par fours the best over 2025 as we prepare for the Procore this week. The par fours are probably less than the average full field course, but the 400, 450 or more, as I expected. And then the par fives, being a par 72, the par fives are going to carry quite a bit of weight. They have been extremely consistent all 5 years going back to 2020. Most of them in that 550 to 600 range, because 3 of the 4 par fives fall to this range. But the par fives carry quite a bit of weight. It's best scoring opportunities on the course. It's where professionals really make their hay. I am interested to look in proximity, particularly these two, because this is where the majority of approach shots come at Silverado, especially compared to the average tour event. This is a very, very high number. I can tell you that. That's going to be astronomically positive. 55%. So really, look at this. All of your proximities are less important than the average full field course, with the exception of the 2 wedges like we talked about last night. Even though this isn't that big of a number, it is in comparison to a lot of other places. 75 to 100, 18, almost 19%. Whereas you take a look at a place like the St. Jude. Doesn't have a lot of approaches from 75 to 100. Take a look at the 3M. Doesn't have a lot of places close, 75 to 100. So the Procore really emphasizing these two, particularly this range and this proximity. We're going to have probably a pretty darn good amount of focus in this range right here. So there's a look at some of the detailed data, some digging into the weeds, getting nasty in the data, if you will, surrounding the Procore and Silverado. So we'll go back to Fantasy National, figure out the players in 2025 who have been the best at some of these various metrics that we just talked about. We're going to skip off the tee for now, and we're just going to go with approach. In the last 24 rounds, your top approach players in the field for the Procore this week: Scotty, Colin Morikawa, Ben Coles, Akshay Bhatia, Victor Perry, Sam Burns, Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, Doug Gim, and J.J. Spawn are your top 10 in terms of approach. Ben Coles, quite interesting. How far back does his go? So he was very good at the end of the year with his irons. Did not putt worth a damn, which is basically his career norm. But he was really, really hot with the irons at the end of the year, gaining at the Wyndham, gaining 4 at the Wyndham, gaining 6.5 at the 3M and the John Deere. But his data goes quite a bit further back since he wasn't in a lot of the premier events towards the end of the season, like the Travelers, like the Open, like the Scottish, etc. 4, 8, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22, 20. So his is going all the way back to like the Valero, which is quite a bit further back. But last 24. All of these other players, kind of no surprise really, in terms of top iron form play. Scotty, Colin, Batia doesn't probably get enough credit for how good of an iron player he typically is. So there's a look at your top iron players. We're going to take a look at around the green, and this is going to have some enhanced importance in the mixed condition model come Wednesday night. Your top around the green players in 2025 or the last 36 rounds: Andrew Putnam, Russell Henley, Patton Kizzire, Bo Hostler, Scotty, Mackenzie Hughes, Matt Kuchar, Tom Kim, Taylor Moore, and Webb Simpson are your top 10. Skipping Baddeley and Davis Riley, they have withdrawn. So don't be surprised if a lot of these players will rise considerably, considering the perceived emphasized importance in terms of around the green here at Silverado. And then we're going to take a look at some putting metrics. I'm going to make sure I do this correctly tonight. I'm going to select the years first and then bring in the courses. We're going to take a look at Detroit Golf Club. We'll bring in Silverado, where we are this week, of course, and TBC River Highlands. These are the courses that have Bent and Poa annua that are consistent on the PGA Tour. I took a look back at a few others. There were a few courses last year, like these one-offs, like the Canadian Open, things of that nature. These are the consistent courses on the PGA Tour that have Bent and Poa annua. Your top putters on Bent and Poa annua greens: Chandler Phillips, Chesson Hadley, Taylor Montgomery, Ben Silverman, Justin Lauer, Seth Theegala, former champion, Adam Hadwin, Matt McCarty, Matthew Riedel, and Michael Thorbjornsen. Interesting to see Homa not up here. He is a two-time winner, and he used to putt the ever-living daylights out of this course. If we take a look at Max Homa and then take a look at, say, the Fortinet, you can see in his wins, a little over four. He gained 6.5. Much further back in the history. Like, he's generally putt very well on this surface, but this speaks to how much Homa has struggled. He has fallen to outside the top 30 in terms of putting on this surface. Did not putt well at the Rocket Mortgage. Did not putt particularly well at the Travelers. Missing the cut last year at the Procore. He gained, but just a little bit. So there you go. There's a look at, or a deep look into Homa and his struggles recently. Another thing that I want to do, let's take a look at some spike percentage. We're going to go on players who gain 2 strokes or more on this surface. We'll do all rounds. Spike of 2. So your top spike percentage players on Bent and Poa annua. You got Matt McCarty, it's only 4 rounds. So Ben Silverman has spiked, 38% of the time. That's pretty solid. Chandler Phillips. Adam Hadwin has spiked quite a bit on this surface type, this Bent and Poa annua. 1 round at the Rocket Mortgage this past year. Travelers last year. Put the ever-living daylights out at the Rocket Mortgage 2 years ago. So he has had a lot of success, or at least a lot of spike success on this surface. Eric Cole, much the same, 26%. Justin Lauer, 26%. McNeely has putt very well on this surface. Mark Hubbard, Chesson Hadley, Andrew Putnam, Thorbjornsen, Cantley. Maybe not necessarily at the Fortinet, but Cantley has putt very well on this surface, particularly spiking. Again, 1 round at the Rocket Mortgage this year. He spiked a couple times at the Travelers last year. So there's a look at some of the players who might not be the most consistent but definitely have the capability, or have shown the capability, to spike on this surface, which is what it's going to take, seemingly. Normally I go to fairways and greens. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do fairways and greens, but there isn't a whole lot here that I'm excited about looking at, considering what we just looked through over on Microsoft Excel. So let's use the short course filter, and the only metric that was anywhere near positive was good drives gained. It was, I think, 1% more important than the average full field course. So on short courses, and I will need to expand the time frame to include last year to make sure we have enough data. Your top good drives gained players on short courses in the field this week for the Procore: Scotty, Grayson Sigg, Ben Coles, Andrew Putnam, Austin Eckroat, Colin Morikawa, Rico Hoey, Takumi Kanaya, Carson Young, and Jackson Koivu. Only one tournament, but he played very well at the Wyndham. There's your top good drives gained players on short courses. We'll take a look at scoring, and we're going to take a look at probably birdies or better. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at opportunities as well while we're here. Your top opportunities gained players on short courses: Luke Clanton, Akshay Bhatia, Scotty, Tom Hoagie, who has played pretty darn well around Silverado in the past. Interesting to see that. Jackson Suber, Keith Mitchell, Ben Griffin, Joel Damon, Russell Henley, and Carson Young are your top 10 in terms of opportunities. Birdies are better on short courses: Scotty, Justin Thomas, Patrick Cantlay, Luke Clanton, Matt McNeely, Max Grazerman, Nico Echeverria, Eric Cole, Chandler Phillips, and Jesper Svensson. So I'll be interested to see, particularly like this opportunities top 10 when we go to the proximity next, how this compares when using that short course filter. Birdies are better, a little bit of the same. So as we talked about quite a bit last night, or at least we saw in the course breakdown, just the high volume of 100 to 125 is the main length, but I mean still 75 to 100 was quite a bit positive as well. Just this huge outlier amount of approaches coming from these lengths. So again, I'll sort on total proximity, but we're looking mostly in this column. In fact, I'll just go ahead and sort on this column. Let's do last 36, just to narrow it in just a little bit. Your top performers on approach shots from 100 to 125, the past 36 rounds. Adam Hadwin, again, spiking with the putter, spiking with the 100 to 125. What has Hadwin done at the Fortinet in years past? So he missed the cut, 3 or 4 years ago. He does have a runner-up. He also has a historical top 10. This is all the way back in 2011, but it is another top 10. He's had some uneven finishes, mostly around how well his irons have done. Gaining 7 in 2019, gaining 6 in 2011. Those are his two top 10s. So, depending on how or what kind of iron form he brings in might be interesting. Which, speaking of, his irons have been atrocious lately. So maybe not the most exciting player to be thinking about. However, just looking at 2019 Fortinet, his irons weren't necessarily in the best form coming into that week either, but he at least had more green than red, I would say, or maybe about the same. Whereas he's had a whole lot of red recently in the irons, so not probably not the most excited about that. But he has been very good from 100 to 125 this year. Adams Vinson, Matt Kuchar, Grayson Sigg, Justin Thomas, Tom Hoagie, Seamus Power, Scotty, Danny Walker, and Ben Coles are your top 10 for 100 to 125. Skipping Bud Colley, he is withdrawn. So, again, I'm going to have quite a bit of emphasis in this range. You don't want to ignore the 75 to 100. I'll probably have something like 10% in this proximity bucket, 5% here. So players like Adams Vinson, like Kuchar, like Grayson Sigg, Seamus Power, Scotty, Ben Coles, they're going to rise pretty precipitously, I guess. Pretty significantly, considering they are very good at both of these proximity ranges. We'll clear that, go into par threes, but again, we're mostly looking at this 175 to 200. So your top performers on par threes, 175 to 200. I will expand to all rounds in 2025, considering most courses have one, maybe two, if any. So your top performers on these links of par threes: Colin Morikawa, Scotty, Justin Thomas, Garrick Higgo, Chan Kim, Ryo Hitsatsune, Russell Henley, Carson Young, Chesson Hadley, Christopher Ventura are your top 10 there. This is probably the length I'll focus on in par threes. Maybe have some in the 200 to 225, so like Scotty, Higgo, Henley, Campbell will rise, Sam Ryder, Snedeker will probably rise. Probably another one of these situations where I'll have, I don't know if I want 10% in this length of par 3, so, but this is the most important length of par 3, so do I go 10% and 5%, or do I go like 5% and ignore this? I don't know. Interesting. What do you think? Put it in chat, put it in the comments. Moving into par 4s, it's pretty simple. We'll probably look at all par 4s because they do have a good mix of par 4s. Now, they don't have anything 500 plus here at Silverado, but they do play one of the par 4s as drivable, so they will play a par 4 in each of these ranges. So we'll probably have a little bit in par 4s, but the majority is here in this 400 to 450. Your top performers on these links of par 4s: Scotty, Gary Woodland, Patrick Cantlay, Kevin Roy, Patrick Fishburne, Victor Perry, Jesper Svensson, Akshay Bhatia, Jackson Koivu, Noah Goodwin, and Trey Mullinax. Don't be surprised to see these players rise pretty significantly, considering this is the bread and butter of the par 4s around Silverado. And then par 5s, we're basically going to put it all in the 550 to 600. Thorbjorn Olesen, Gordon Sargent, Scotty, Hayden Springer, Cam Young, Will Gordon, Max McGreevy, Victor Perry, Quade Cummins, and Harris English are your top 10 in regards to these links of par 5s. All right. Let's go back to Fantasy National, and we'll take a look at the early look file that I put together for each tournament. This is gathering statistics at the course that we're playing or that we're at for the week. So this week these are stats all accumulated at Silverado going back the past 5 years. I only go back 5 years. You see most of these players have only played it one time, but somebody like Sahith Theegala has a lot of success here. 5 for 5, average finish of 15th. He's just been amazing here at Silverado. So let's go ahead and sort on some of these metrics. And in fact, I need to unhighlight Troy Merritt, and I need to take out Davis Riley, which, did I just see him? No. Davis Riley. I did not get a chance to edit this sheet with that newest withdrawal. So let's go ahead and sort on some of these. We'll start with irons. We'll start with approach, especially since off the tee doesn't seem to carry a whole lot of weight here. Your top iron players at Silverado the past 5 years. Justin Thomas, it's only one time, but we took a look at his player page view last night. He's got a lot of historical success around Silverado. So he has been very, very good, and you see that he has putt very well around Silverado. So keep that in mind as we move forward this week. Players who have played it more often, like Tom Hoagie, excellent with the irons. Do you expect that? But again, has putt very well around here, leading to a lot of success. James Hahn has hit his irons very well. Sam Ryder has hit his irons very well, but a whole lot to be desired in terms of success. He hasn't done much else well, I should say. Grayson Sigg hit his irons well. Hughes, Andrew Putnam 4 for 5. There's Max Homa, who's played very well and just missed the cut last year, but otherwise has played very well around Silverado. JJ Spawn has been very good around Silverado, particularly with the ball striking. We mentioned Sahith Theegala. David Lipsky, last year's runner-up, not known as a good putter, has been gaining. So interesting to see that. Interesting to see Patton Kizzire, our defending champion, has been very hit and miss. He's got a win. He's got 2 missed cuts. Average finish of 63rd. He has been either very good or very bad, seemingly, here at Silverado. So there's a look at some of your top iron players historically, or at least in the past 5 years at Silverado. I am going to skip around the green because I do want to get into the research. So your top putters at Silverado, players who have just been making a lot of putts around Silverado. Taylor Montgomery, leaving a lot to be desired in terms of performance, but he is putt well. Sahith Theegala's putt well around here. Bo Hostler's putt extremely well around here. Kuchar, somebody I'm kind of keeping an eye on this week. Max Homa, Chesson Hadley, Zach Blair, Justin Lauer, Tom Hoagie. Like these players, particularly like Tom Hoagie, Justin Thomas, even though it's only one time, these guys aren't known for being good putters. Yet here's Hoagie. Lipsky, not known for being a good putter. Interesting to note. Interesting to note about that. So do with that info what you will. We'll move to birdies gained, I guess. Just very quickly. Your top birdies gained players. Burns, Fishburne, Highsmith all one time. There's Max Homa, 2-time champion. Sahith Theegala. Gosh dang it. Sahith Theegala. Lipsky. Batia's 1 for 2. Chesreavy 4 for 5. Hadley 3 for 5. There's Griot. Interesting to see McNeely has really struggled here. A California guy. He's actually played acceptable. You know, the irons are negative, sure, but you would think being 1 for 4 around here, you would think he would have, you know, like Quade Cummins level irons or something. He's actually been pretty acceptable. He's been, I don't want to say solid, but it's been okay. And yet he's only 1 for 4 here, so interesting to see that. He's positive bogey avoidance. That's kind of interesting. I kind of like seeing that from McNeely, I guess. Probably isn't taking advantage of par 5s as much. But, okay. We'll take a look at par 4s and par 5s and then get into the research. So par 4s, the main par 4s links around here. Chris Ventura, Kuchar, Homa, Justin Lauer, Grayson Sigg, JJ Spawn, Putnam, Griot, Kazire, Hoagie, a lot of your same culprits, if you will. Actually, in fact, I'm going to skip the par 5s. I want to see who's done well at this proximity range at Silverado. This is what I'm quite interested to see. Like Thorbjornsen, even though he's got a very middling finish, he was very good his 1 year at both of these ranges. Ben Coles has been pretty darn good. Highsmith and Keith Mitchell. Villegas 0 for 2, but he's been very good with the wedges. My guess is he hasn't putt very well. In fact, his irons haven't been good with the exception of his very short approach game. Let's see, Hadwin, Kazire, Sam Burns. There's Homa. There's Tagala down here. Interesting. All right. I don't usually look into proximity, but it's been pretty clear that proximity length is something we're going to want to look at pretty extensively. So I'll sort again on best average finish. Let's take a look at some of the research that I would have posted had there been enough consistency, I guess is the word I'm looking for, regarding these previous winners. We'll start with the winner matrix, how these champions have done leading up to their win at the Procore, specifically at the Procore. You see Patton Kazire, he had a historical runner-up, but particularly recently had really struggled. Miscut, top 30, miscut, 56th, and then wins. So not a whole lot of success there. Sahith Theegala, a little bit of a different story. Top 10, top 15. I believe he top 10'd last year as well. So he just generally likes Silverado. He did have a very middling performance in 2021, but so we've had one person with little to no success. We've had one that has had a lot of success. Homa, before winning, didn't have a lot of success around Silverado. Stuart Sink didn't play for 3 years, missed the cut, and then wins. So clearly Sahith Theegala is the outlier here in terms of prior performance at Silverado. Because none of these other champions, except for maybe Cameron Champ with a top 25, and maybe Brendan Steele way back in 2016, had much success. Kazire, very little success. Homa, at least before his first win, very little success. Sink didn't have much success at all. Kevin Tway making the cut to a 52nd, a 60-second, like not great. So there wasn't a whole lot of consistency among previous champions. If we take a look at their most recent performance, most of these guys were in the playoffs, but not all of them. Patton Kazire wasn't in the playoffs last year. Theegala made it to the BMW. Max Homa, made it to Eastlake and the BMW. 2020 was Stuart Sink, or Cameron. No, it was Stuart Sink. Yeah, Stuart Sink. 2020 was a little bit of not a little bit. It was quite the odd year, but he wasn't in the playoffs. So not a whole lot of consistency here. And look at all these metrics. Like some guys were in form off the tee, some guys weren't. Same with approach. It is kind of interesting to see that majority of these players at least gained in distance. Don't know how much I am gonna factor that in. Just not a whole lot of consistency was the story. The only thing I could say is that in their most recent event, they were taking advantage of par 5s, particularly the length of par 5s that is prominent around Silverado. That's about the only thing all of these past winners share in terms of their most recent start. So if we take a look at their form, and I just happened to grab every single tournament that they played that year, I do want you to notice, particularly late in the year, like this is Patton Kazire from last year. While he didn't have overwhelming form coming in, he at least had a top 20 recently. And I'm going to use the caveat within the past 5 starts. So top 20 within the past 5 starts. Seth Theegala, couple top 15s within the past 5 starts. Homa was decent. Maybe not with the irons, but he top 5'd East Lake, top 25 the BMW, top 25 the Rocket Mortgage. Then the first year he won, he had a top 25, at least somewhat recent, within the past 5 starts before his win at the Fortinet. So that's really about the only consistent thing that I saw among a lot of these former champions. Even Stuart Sink in the oddity that 2020 was. He had a top 20 or top 25 within the past few starts. Top 25 from Cam Champ. A couple of top 20s from Kevin Tway. So with only, a top 20 within the past 5 starts and gaining on these par 5s, it wasn't enough to narrow down the field enough to put it, over on social media. So I didn't post anything over there today, but I wanted to show you that I did put in the work. I just did not see anything that was cohesive enough to try and narrow down the field to a list of winners. But that is the thing that I would look at. I would go back to maybe the beginning of August, and maybe the middle of July, and take a look at some of those players and see if they top 20'd at least once. Like Patton Kazire didn't have a whole lot of success, but he was at least moderately in contention. Now that I look at it, he was in form around the green. Theegala was in form around the green. Homa was in form around the green. The past 3 champions were at least in good form around the green. Now, the first time Homa won, he wasn't necessarily. Sink was pretty hit and miss. I don't know. Maybe a little bit there, but like nothing with distance. Like Kazire was pretty average in terms of distance. Tegala's generally on the longer end. Homa's generally on the longer end, but not always. Sink, not really. So, not a whole lot of consistency there is what I'll get at. Not a whole lot of consistency. So, that's what I have for you all in terms of a Data Dive show. I want to thank you for tuning in, watching, listening, supporting the channel, liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. Let me know in the comments if you've put out any wagers, how you feel about this week, and of course, let me know about any success that you've had. Doesn't have to be golf wagering related. Again, how was your week 1 fantasy football? Any NFL parlays or college football parlays, anything like that. Feel free to put all of your success. Let me know either in the comments or reach out to me on social media. Would love to be able to shout out members of the community who have success. So thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you've made so far this week for the Procore, for all the wagers you're thinking about making this week for the Procore. And until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.